So let's just ask this now. How many of you know Duolingo? Woo! There are a few hands out here who don't. Just give us a quick snapshot for those who don't know how prominent and prestigious you are as Pittsburgh's most valuable startup and what you do.
It's extremely prestigious. No. We are literally next door.
That's why we were here.
Yes,
Yeah.
Our office is next door. We're a tech company. We teach languages, so we have a website and some apps to learn languages. Duolingo.com. We launched in 2012, and since then we've been very lucky that it's become the most popular education app in both iPhone and Android devices. We have over 300 million users worldwide. And there's a lot of really interesting statistics. For example, there are more people learning languages on Duolingo in the United States than there are people learning languages in the whole US public school system. Yeah.
That's a conversation stopper. Wow. That's fascinating. Well, today we're out, talking about workforce, how to make the economic equation work in places like Pittsburgh. I was amused reading about a billboard you posted. Was it on the 5 freeway? Which freeway were you on in Silicon Valley?
US 101.
This is the most obnoxious thing a CEO in Pittsburgh could do. But tell them what you did.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of press based on this. So here's basically what happened. We wanted to have we get a few applicants from Silicon Valley who want to work for us, and a lot of times they tell us that one of the reasons they're looking to move here is because they could actually afford a home. So we decided, why don't we just put a huge billboard in kind of the most transited highway in Silicon Valley. The billboard basically said, "Work in tech, own a home, move to Pittsburgh." That's all it said, and it was this humongous billboard. So we decided we wanted to do that. It turns out billboards in US 101 are actually pretty expensive. So then when we heard how expensive they were, we didn't want to do it. But somehow my co-founder basically told the billboard guy, "Listen, if you ever have anybody cancel on your billboard and you have a spot, we'll pay $10,000 to put a billboard in there if you ever have a free spot." Turns out, a few months later, somebody canceled, and we paid $10,000 to put a humongous billboard in there that said that, and we got a ton of applicants. It's worked out pretty well.
So billboard movies, I think, are doing pretty well right now out in Hollywood. So maybe that'll be part of your future. But you're out there competing for talent, and I was talking, because I'm so impressed with the university teams out here, the tech resources and assets that are in the Pittsburgh area, but I'm interested in how you look at team and competing for talent and why we're talking about diversity in a way, but what do you think comprises the workforce that makes Duolingo successful? What are the dimensions of that?
Well, fundamentally we're a technology company.
Right.
So one of the things is 50% of our employees are engineers, computer engineers,
right.
Not like car engineers. We don't need those. We are huge believers in just hiring the very best. I mean, it makes a huge difference between an engineer that is kind of middle of the road and one that is really A+. I mean, one that is A+ is really, they call them 10x engineers, and it's usually
10x engineers.
Yeah, it's usually they really are worth 10 times the middle of the road ones.
Right.
So our hiring standards are very high. We interviewed, there's this number I was looking at. So we've had 90,000 people apply for jobs at Duolingo. And we've made about 300 offers in total. So we try to hire really good people. That's good, except this makes it hard to hire. We have not been able to hire super fast. So we have to try to get talent from wherever we can. Most of the people we've hired have moved from somewhere else to Pittsburgh. I think it's about more than 50% of the people that we've hired have moved from somewhere else to Pittsburgh.
Is it hard for you to have a gender and racially diverse workforce, particularly in your engineering team?
Well, it's hard everywhere in tech. I mean, this yes.
Why?
There's years and years of probably I don't know what better words to use other than discrimination that have been going on. So we try really hard to try to have as diverse of a workforce as possible. We are not succeeding. We're doing what we can. We feel pretty good about our gender ratio. just this year. So all the people that we hired to start this year, 50% are male and 50% are female, which we feel really good about that. That's in our engineering workforce. We had to do a lot to do that without lowering standards, so we had to do a lot. So we're good in that. We're good in Latino diversity, mainly because I'm Latino, so somehow other Latinos want to work with me, I think. We're not good, we do not have enough African Americans working for us, that we're not good in that. So yeah, so for some things we're doing well, for some things we're not doing so well.
What needles do you think you can move in that? I mean, I'm you know, for those of you who don't have a chance, just Google this guy, I guess, or, you know, whatever search engine you use. I want to be careful with. You never know who you're like paying off for this, you know. But your candor about what needles you're trying to, you try to create very free platforms, language learning free. You know, make sure that people who don't have assets and resources can still have access to your platform. And so you come packaged with this kind of orientation towards a social justice dimension, if you will, to what you do internally. At least that's the impression I get. And you know, I'm always tempted in this to say, if you had, you know, a competitor next to you who wasn't doing these things, would you eventually beat them because they're not? I mean, does kind of an all-white male engineering crowd in Pittsburgh, can they beat you, or does diversity pay off?
Oh, I think it pays off a lot. I mean, you know, we do it both internally and externally. You know, our mission, when we decided to launch Duolingo, this was a few years ago. The reason to start the company, at least for me, was because I wanted to do something that would give equal access to education to everybody. I was very fortunate. I had sold my second company to Google, so I wasn't doing this for the money. I was born in Guatemala, which is
a totally weird thing about you, by the way. I mean, the other dimension. I mean, how many of you have typed in those little squiggly letters, you know, to prove that you're a human and not a bot, called CAPTCHA? This is the man who invented CAPTCHA.
Sorry.
And he gave it to Yahoo for free. Dude.
Yeah,
you know?
I didn't know what I was doing back then. That was
clearly.
But then I came back and I did another company.
Now you want to make some money?
No, before.
Yeah.
I did another company based on that, and I did manage to make some money. But then after that, I wanted to do something that was really just related to my passion, which is education, right. and a lot of it has to do with me being from Guatemala. It's a very poor country, and in a place like Guatemala, the people who have a lot of money can buy themselves the best education in the world, or the people who don't have a lot of money barely learn how to read and write. So I wanted to do something that would give equal access to education, and this is where Duolingo came from. Yeah. Duolingo it's free. You can learn a language for free on Duolingo. This is part of the mission of the company. So we're not going to charge for learning a language, and even though that has been the case, there are other language learning companies that make software for learning a language. Rosetta Stone is one of them. There's a few others. We have this mission. We do make money. The way we make money is we put ads at the end of the lessons. But we have enough users that we are now making significantly more money than all these other companies that are just trying to charge users to do it, whereas we have a free product that is actually able to make more money. So I really believe that has worked out for us. In the case of diversity, I mean, at the end of the day, we have users in every single country in the world. Only about 20% of our users are in the United States. Our users are 50-50 male, female. I believe that it is important that the people who work on the product reflect our user base because, for example, we have a ton of users in Brazil. At first, we had no Brazilians working for Duolingo. Eventually, we hired a couple of Brazilians, and we realized all kinds of things we were doing wrong with Brazil because we didn't have any Brazilians, and then they just told us, no, in Brazil, things are like this or things are like that. It's the same with gender diversity. I really honestly believe we are creating a better product just because we have a slightly more diverse workforce than a bunch of white dudes.
Just real quick, I know Bill Gates calls you occasionally on AI and just short form. I'm interested in, when Bill Gates calls someone regularly, I guess you've spoken to him, a dozen or so times. What does he want from you?
Money. No, I'm kidding. No.
No, but what? I mean, I know he's talking to you about artificial intelligence, and I'm always intrigued with, technology and advancing, where we fit in the future. And so, what are you doing with AI that intrigues Bill Gates so much?
Well, I mean, of late, the main reason that he has been interested in talking to us is Duolingo. I mean, he's really interested in education. He's actually a Duolingo user, which is actually one of the things that I'm
What language is Bill Gates trying to learn?
I'm not going to. I'm not
come
supposed
on.
to say anything about our users. This is like some privacy stuff.
I tried.
It is not English. I'll tell you. He's not
Okay.
trying to learn English.
That's tweetable. Bill Gates is not using Duolingo for English. Yeah.
But this is one of the things that makes me the proudest. The fact that he uses our app, and on the other end of the spectrum, children in public schools in developing countries also use our app. And if you go to a public school in a developing country, you really don't have a lot of money because public schools in like Guatemala, they're pretty bad.
Right.
So the fact that basically the richest men in the world, or used to be the richest men in the world, and poor kids in developing countries are using the same system, that is really what made me the proudest, because it's really, more money could not buy you a better system.
Right. Fascinating.
Now, in his case, I mean, he's really interested in just how to be able to teach better, more efficiently, and with more capital efficiency. I mean, this is, the nice thing about teaching with apps is that it's actually really efficient. I mean, I don't know how much we spend in teaching people here in the United States. It's probably spend $10 million a year supporting the system to teach people here in the United States, but we cover more people than the whole US public school system, which teaching languages, it probably spends $10 billion a year. So it's just very efficient. Now, I'm not saying that Duolingo is necessarily more effective than a classroom. I think what's most effective is a classroom combined with Duolingo, but there are many cases, particularly many countries, where just the classroom cannot get to the kids, and so you need a capital efficient way of reaching kids, and this is why, something like an app is
So we just had a panel up here. It's fascinating to listen to. We're very committed to inclusion, diversity, and really social justice in a way being not something that's a philanthropic exercise, but built in, embedded in what we do. And I'm interested, if you took your hat off as a CEO and we turned you in charge of being a Pittsburgh bureaucrat, what would you do to fix the problem that I think some of us are struggling with here today of creating, dealing with bias, dealing with discrimination, dealing with opening these pipelines? When you look at it, what would be 2 or 3 of the things you would immediately do to begin moving needles from your experience?
Holy crap. Look, these are really hard problems to solve. I don't claim to have great answers. I'm actually, one of the things that I am amazed at. Last week, we tweeted from the Duolingo main account, the main Duolingo Twitter account. We have a ton of followers, that we were very proud about our gender ratio, for example, and it was amazing how many people were tweeting at us, in response to that, who were really pissed off at this. I mean, I should say,
off at you?
Yes, at us for this. I should say they were all men. They basically accusing us of discrimination
against men.
Against men, because how could we have a 50-50 female ratio? Obviously, we're discriminating against men if we have a 50-50 ratio, which blew my mind that people were tweeting that at us. And so I tweeted another thing. This was just from my account, basically saying, I probably got a little too emotional. I called these people idiots. Shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, you use colorful language in many of the interviews.
But it is amazing how, we got really pounded on this. I mean, it's really basically we got accused of discrimination, et cetera. And by the way, the way we got to this gender ratio was as follows. We did not lower our bar. What we did is we actually went and decided we recruit from universities. We decided to stop recruiting from any university that had less than 20% females in their computer science department. So we decided we're just not going to do that. And what?
How does Carnegie Mellon stack up?
Carnegie Mellon's very good at that. They're actually quite good. As far as I understand, in their latest incoming class to computer science was actually balanced. It was 50-50. So Carnegie Mellon is one of the better ones in the country. But we did cut off some very good schools that are well known, et cetera, that we just decided not to recruit from there. And in fact, we told them, we said, hey, we're not going to come recruit there. Well, we would ask first. We'd say, okay, what's your gender ratio? If they gave us something that was lower than 20%, we would say, sorry, we're not going to go recruit from there. So we told them. So this was something that I thought worked pretty well, but of course, this particular process, we got accused of discriminating because I guess we're discriminating.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, I don't. What's difficult about this is that almost anything you do, you can open yourself up to attacks from everywhere. So probably the best thing that I can imagine doing. I mean, one of the most eye-opening things to me was this is not exactly related to hiring, but I was a woman told me once. They said, well, you should really notice in meetings how many times women get interrupted versus how many times the men get interrupted. And I didn't believe it. I thought, it's probably about the same. This is what I thought, because I had never noticed this. And so I spent actually a whole day just not saying anything in meetings, but just counting how many times men versus women got interrupted. It was not balanced. It was, in fact, far from being balanced. And just doing exercises like that, I think if you just encourage people to do exercises like that, I think you gain a lot of perspective. I mean, I felt bad about myself after that for months.
Not to nudge you any direction or other, but I don't know the local Pittsburgh paper, but that would be a fantastic op-ed if you wanted to write it. So let me open up to the floor and questions. We've got one in the very back. Yes. Hi.
Thank you, Marissa Williams. I commend you for what you shared about not recruiting from universities that have less than 20% of women. I want to challenge and maybe stretch you a little bit, though. What would it look like if you did that for people of color?
Yes,
What would the diversity of your organization look like? Because you talked about how that was a struggle in the beginning.
Right, terrific question.
That's an excellent question, and it is something that we've in fact talked about this year. We tried to do this, spend more effort. So there's some schools that do much better in terms of of that type of diversity. So we're trying much harder to recruit from there, and hopefully that'll. I mean, this is our next biggest priority, is to fix that issue, because at least for our own workforce, because I know we're sucking at it. We're not doing well at it.
Terrific. Right here.
Hi, I'm Janara Solomon, Executive Director of the Kelly Strayhorn Theater.
Be a little bit closer in the mic. The acoustics are hard in this room.
Hi.
Yeah, okay.
Janara Solomon, Kelly Strayhorn, right across the street. We're one of the places that Andre talked about that sometimes people don't trust. But we are incredibly excited to have this conversation happening here in our neighborhood. And Luis, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, one of the things that I'm thinking about related to the last conversation. There was a little bit of a mention of what gentrifiers can do to create authentic relationships when they arrive in a neighborhood. And Duolingo has, as you said, less than 20% of the users are American. You have an international profile. Can you talk a little bit about the ways that you all have worked to create authentic relationships here in this neighborhood?
Terrific. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I mean, this is, we've tried hard to be good neighbors. We work with the Kelly Strayhorn Theater. We worked with a few organizations here, the Circles organization, and we've tried to be really good neighbors. Actually, a lot of the people that work for Duolingo are very passionate about this, being good neighbors, and so we try to have, we try to invite people from the neighborhood and kind of listen to their perspectives, etc. I'll just tell a funny story. There was a demonstration about it was about this new complex that they're trying to open over there with I don't know if the Whole Foods is going to end up going there or not, but at the time it was a Whole Foods, and a lot of our employees, I think it was a demonstration against gentrification of some sort, and a lot of our employees went there to demonstrate, and I found that pretty interesting because I was like, I think we're the gentrifiers, guys. But kind of
you give your people a lot of flexibility. Yeah.
I mean, they went. This is not, but they were demonstrating. But it was a very funny thing because from the office, in the office we're a tech company, so we treat our employees, very nicely. Some of the people right before going, they were like, well, we may get thirsty, so they went and got some coconut water from our that we have. So I found the whole situation extremely funny. These guys taking coconut water to go, in case they get thirsty, to go demonstrate. So
Against you.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not exactly against us. I mean, I don't think we're
Yeah.
necessarily at fault with anything here, but I mean, I think it's a very complex situation in that respect. But we really do feel like that we owe
Yeah.
it to the neighborhood to really blend in and
Right.
to have a to have everybody can happily be here.
You know, it's a great question, and we're right at the end of our time. Oh, do we have fast question, fast answer? And I'll leave mine till the next session. Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, thanks. My name is David White. I run the bike share program here, Healthy Ride.
So I'm going to ask you to speak a little more
louder.
slowly. Yeah.
Oh, slowly. I'm just piggybacking off of a question I heard earlier from the back. Could you be a little more specific about your recruiting and hiring practices and give us some advice about creating an examination or interview process that is free from the bias that would intentionally kind of recruit white males? How do you
Awesome.
create a thorough interview process that is free from those
Right.
types of bias?
Awesome question to cap this off with.
Yeah. So your question is how do we make our interview process as bias free as possible? I mean,
And what advice do you give others?
yeah. So
Right.
first of all, I cannot claim that our interview process is bias free. I am certain it's biased. It's not on purpose, but I'm certain it's biased. I mean, I don't know if you've seen. I mean, I've seen all these experiments where you show a resume of somebody, and it just seeing the name completely changes. You know, whether it's a male or a female name or a foreigner or something, completely changes people's perspective of what the different things in the resume mean. So we try to do as much as we can. We try to do name blind stuff on our hiring. We do a lot of training for anti-bias training. These are some of the things we try to do. Let's see. What are other things that we do? I don't know. So anti-bias training, we try to blind the names of people so that people can't tell. I think those are the main things we do. But generally, I mean, the other thing is we try to have, it's not so good when, for example, a female candidate gets interviewed only by males or only by females. So we try to have interview panels that are as diverse as possible. So, whenever you come to interview at Duolingo, we try that you get interviewed by different types of people, and I think that helps a lot. So we try to balance that. Yeah,
Well,
I think those are the main things.
Thank you. And Luis Fanon, thank you so much for sharing some of your insights and your practices.
Thank you.
Congratulations on all you've done. Luis Fanon, Duolingo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.